Hello and welcome to another episode of Mentorship for Advanced Endoscopy. It's a series that we started as part of the Innovations in GIE journal from MASGE. I'm your host, Vivek Kaul, Professor of Medicine at the University of Rochester Medical Center, and I also serve as the Associate Editor for the Insights section of IGIE. Today it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome two good friends and colleagues, brilliant endoscopists and also amazing people. First up, Dr. Peter Draganov, Professor of Medicine and Director of Endoscopy at the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Vivek. Glad to be here.
Thanks. And Dennis Yang, who's the Director of the Third Space Endoscopy at the Center for Interventional Endoscopy at Advent Health in Orlando, Florida. Welcome, Dennis.
Hey, Vivek. Thank you. Pleasure being here.
So first up, I think the goal of this conversation and discussion is to really bring into the light some of your past experiences as a mentor and a mentee, and reflect upon it, and then see what tips and advice you can give to emerging mentors and future mentees. So, Peter, along those lines, tell us a little bit about your early life and how you came into this role, and what attracted you to endoscopy, your early training years, and so forth. How did you end up, entering the field? A little bit of information on that, please.
Absolutely. Both my parents are physicians, so I've been immersed in medicine since I was born, literally. And medicine as a profession came very natural to me. In medical school, I was very much attracted to specialties that were fixing things, using your hands in one way or another. And at that time, gastroenterology was not quite there. It was mostly diagnostic endoscopy, so it was not one of my primary choices. But eventually, the cognitive aspect of gastroenterology attracted me, and that's what was the tipping point. Great disappointment from my father in particular, who was a cardiologist, for me to veer away from that, but it has been a great choice for me, combining the cognitive aspect of medicine with the manual satisfaction that you get from pulling a stone out of the bile duct, for example.
Understand. Thank you for sharing that. And Dennis?
So, I can't say that my parents were physicians, but you can imagine, not to be stereotypical, but coming from a Chinese background, my choices were either to become a doctor or to become a lawyer. And, I ended up choosing to become a doctor. So I think gastroenterology was one of the fields that interested me mostly during medical school. I just was really drawn to the physiology and pathophysiology of the GI tract. I felt like it was one of the specialties that made more sense to me from a cognitive aspect, so I was really drawn to it. And then, of course, just like Dr. Draganov mentioned, having just the ability to be able to work every day, not only to diagnose, the ability to treat diseases and provide immediate results is certainly one of the most gratifying aspects of what we do, I think.
So along those lines, Peter, who were your early mentors once you came into the field, endoscopy-wise? Any fond memories of, or not so fond memories of how you became who you became early on?
Well, Vivek, sometimes you happen to be in the right place at the right time. So I simply got lucky. I came to the United States immediately after medical school, and I ended up at the Medical University of South Carolina for my internal medicine residency. Just because my mother at the time was doing her PhD at that institution, so it came natural. But the luck was that Peter Cotton and Rob Haas moved in that institution at the exact same time. And that was my first serious exposure to advanced endoscopy. And the rest is history. At the time, that program was one of the leading programs in the world with unbelievable vibe of multiple international people coming to train. And if you look at now who is who in GI currently, a vast majority of people have come through that program. So that was my initial exposure to advanced endoscopy, and it was amazing.
I can imagine no two better people to start with, but very different styles, right, Peter? For Rob and Peter as well?
Day and night.
Day and night.
It was very interesting because both of them are my mentors. Rob was very straightforward, easy to communicate in a way that you knew exactly what is going on. Peter, even now, I am having a hard time to know exactly when he's very happy or mad at me.
Yes.
Very fun, consistent in his communication, and not much ups and downs, just slow and steady, as they say, indeed, as a mentors.
So trainees should know that sometimes mentors will use a special trick that they don't let you know whether they're happy or not happy. Dennis, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't know I wanted to do advanced endoscopy till probably later, once after I matched into fellowship, and pretty much at least 1 year into general GI fellowship. But early on, when I was a resident at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. David Ahlquist, who may rest in peace. He was one of the brightest people and kindest people I have ever met. And he really took me under his wing, considering back then I was just a fresh intern who really much didn't have an idea of how to establish myself to be able to develop a career in GI. And he introduced me to research, allowed me to work in his lab, focus on stool DNA. So I'm always very grateful for his patience and his commitment to my growth in spite of being a very busy person. And then certainly I had ties to Florida, so I wanted to come to Florida for GI fellowship. He recommended University of Florida as the premier program in the state, in spite of having Mayo Clinic Jacksonville as well. But he mentioned several names, including at the time, as well as Chris Forsmark and Peter Draganov, and that's how I ended up at University of Florida.
Yeah, I think you hit upon several principles there that a classic mentor will have is kindness, the ability to take somebody under their wing, and then to guide them dispassionately, in their early career choices. That's really, really key, and sets the stage for success. I think, most of us have our own biases and our own prejudices, so to speak, in life. But when it comes to mentorship in the professional realm, I think we have to advise according to what we think is the best fit. So that naturally kind of leads me to what was going to be my next question is, how did you guys find each other? And I think, Dennis, you answered that. You were obviously training already at the University of Florida, and you had some really stellar people that you were probably already meeting as you were looking at the GI realm. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I still remember I started my first month as general GI fellow in outpatient clinic. I think they were concerned a little bit that I was coming from Mayo Clinic Rochester, that I would be overwhelmed by high volume number of patients. So they said, let's ease him with outpatient clinic. And I was really fortunate to be paired up with Dr. Draganov in his clinic, and that was a great opportunity for me to early on to start interacting with him and seeing his panel of patients, which were mainly pancreatical biliary, advanced endoscopy, and started getting me into the field.
No, that's interesting that your early foray there was in a non-endoscopy setting, right? So it's an important message because, whether it's going to the lab or research lab or clinic, or whether you need to run an errand for a potential, no, I'm just kidding. I think whatever capacity you can engage with a potential mentor, you should grab that. So Peter, I don't know at the time, by the way, how far back was it that you actually started fellowship with Dr. Draganov, Dennis?
That was 2011. So
right, so about more than a decade. So at that time, Peter, were you doing an organized match-based fellowship, or did you just look at him in the clinic, he looked good, and you signed him up?
We were going through the match process. We always have been, except for when at one point the match disintegrated.
Right.
So we had a handful of years, but I'm quite sure Dennis came to us through the match for general GI.
Right.
So we went through the process. Obviously, his background was stellar on paper, but even more importantly, in person.
I think that naturally leads us to the question that, I was going to ask is that, Dennis mentioned how he found you, and in your case, those are the attributes that stood out, right? So some early work in your career that speaks to who you are, and obviously, how you present yourself and so forth are probably the reasons that mentors and programs look at trainees when they select them, right? Is there anything particular or specific that stood out about Dennis that you could share that other folks watching this might learn from or keep in mind?
Well, speaking of complete package, certainly a solid educational background that's you can easily discern through paperwork, but what you cannot discern from paperwork is personality. And Dennis was, first of all, very much committed to academics. So whatever stuff he has done as a background, it was not done just to get into a fellowship, which sometimes happens. It was genuinely done because of the love of it. And then eventually, when you get to work with somebody, people fall into different categories, but on the two extremes are problem solvers and problem creators. Dennis is a problem solver. So when there is an issue, he tries to resolve it, and in most cases successfully so. We all have had in our experience in a mentor-mentee that on the other end of the spectrum is people that are more challenging, which doesn't mean that we don't have to work with them, but certainly with Dennis, it was a very easy thing to do.
No, that's very well put. And I must admit, it's very hard to always be able to predict a positive or a negative outcome at the beginning of such a relationship. But as we grow in our experience, I think it becomes a little bit easier to spot, the people that we want to work with. So Dennis, when you did this over a decade ago, can you share with some of the younger trainees nowadays, how, or any advice you have since then, is how does an advanced endoscopy candidate, best prepare himself or herself, for such a fellowship interview process, application? What are some of the pearls you could share with your younger colleagues?
Yeah, I always joke that, and I don't know if it's a joke or not, but the reality that things have become so competitive in this field that if I were to apply now I don't know if that educational portfolio I had at the moment would be stellar enough, just because of the circumstances. But I think some of the things that are important is to first and foremost for anybody is to remember why you became a physician in the first place, which is to take care of patients. And I think as a trainee, sometimes people get so bogged down about what they need to do for an application that they forget about why you're doing this in the first place. And that should be patient care. And I think if you keep that as your primary goal, it tends to reflect in how you carry yourself. And this will translate into people who you work with recognizing that. And they're going to, that importantly, oftentimes results in excellent letters of recommendations for applicants, which for me is the most important thing that I look into during any applicant's package. Their letters of recommendation regarding patient care, regarding how they carry themselves, because after all, these are the trainees we're going to be working with who are going to be taking care and watching over my patients. And then secondly, there's, given the competitiveness in the field, I think that involvement in scholastic activity nowadays is necessary, mainly because all programs, all of us are trying to look for people who we believe are going to push the field forward. And at the end of the day, that tends to be through research and education. So, and that's where being able to find yourself a mentor and who may be able to guide you through this process is indispensable.
So those are very thoughtful comments. And might I add that I think one of the things that we have always talked about is, what are you going to do with this training, right? Do you have a plan? And a lot of the times people have not had that type of thinking built into their career moves. But I think especially nowadays, especially with the platforms that we have and so many different options, I think it becomes really critical because I think, Peter, you will agree that we have, and we have published on this before, is that there is an oversaturation of talent in some areas, and many parts of the country don't have the necessary skill sets still that we train people in, and but I think people gravitate to communities and areas that that they feel most attracted to. But it's a big country, and I think one of the things that we talk about is where are you going to go, what your platform will be, what are you going to do with this training, right, Peter?
Absolutely. I cannot agree with you more, Vivek. And actually, this is a hot topic of discussion at the ASGE. Do we have too many advanced endoscopies or not enough? And the reality is that we don't know because in the US, we have a decentralized medicine. It's hard to keep track actually how many people do ERCP, even simple thing like that. So how do you know? But my personal bias opinion is that we have enough. It's simply an issue of distribution. In the desirable markets, we have oversaturation, but we have at the same time not enough in geographic areas of need. And you cannot easily fix that, particularly in the United States, where medicine is not carefully planned. For example, in Bulgaria, where I grew up, medical school was free, or kind of free, because after you graduate for 3 years, you go to a destination that they assign. Kind of similar to the system like they have here in the military. They pay for your medical school, but after you're done, you have to go to basically somewhere where they tell you and work there for 3 years to pay back in a way for your medical school. And usually it was underserved area. They will not assign you to the capital downtown area.
Right.
not feasible in this country, so we rely here mostly on market forces for that distribution. But I think our focus should be to continue to train good physicians, and the rest allow the market to do its job. But back to Denis's point about being a good doctor, to me, that still remains the crucial part of the interview process and the candidate selection. I routinely call colleagues in other institutions when we're considering a candidate to get a personal feedback. And usually they say, oh yeah, he's great, he has done not many research projects. And I'd say, no, I mean, don't tell me about that. I can see that from the CV. Tell me how they're in everyday clinical practice, because I'll gladly work with a fellow who will not write a single manuscript in their fellowship if they don't want to do so. I'll be glad to help them do that. But if they're not up to that, that's fine with me. But if they're not good on the clinical side every day, that will be truly a challenge to train, most importantly because of attitude and work ethic. So that to me is the key. But that's the hardest one to get a sense from interviews and stuff like that.
That is absolutely correct, and I'm very impressed with the consistency of both of you emphasizing the fact that the patient really needs to come first, and in any kind of a review of a career product, the most important thing is the humanity and the humanistic elements of a physician's or a person's approach to patient care and their clinical competency as well. I think one of the things in medicine is that the reason it's such a unique profession is that it needs complete sincerity and honesty in your engagements with your customer. And I think that especially in complex endoscopy, where the stakes are so high many times, things can go wrong, things may not be complete, things may have to be redone. That transparency is really important. And if you are starting with a situation where that's not been the paradigm, it becomes even more difficult in the training year and most certainly in the practice years. So I think this point cannot be overemphasized. I'm very grateful to both of you to bring that to the forefront. And the other things that fall in place, the CVs and the research and all the other glamorous stuff that comes along. But this is the first thing. In fact, to be honest, as you will agree, even most of the clinical research we do is related to patient care first, right? If you don't have the patients, you're not going to get any clinical research. So that's pretty obvious. So Peter and then Denis, any core principles in advanced endoscopy training that you feel are really critical? Should there be research, 1 or 2 years? How many pathways? Just very quickly, your thoughts on it, and I'll ask Denis to follow on that. Like, what do you think is currently and going forward should the blocks of training include?
Yeah, absolutely. Vivek, we're in a crossroads. When I was in medical school, ERCP was the only advanced procedure. And then when I was easing into my GI fellowship, EUS was the hot tamale. And since then, now we do deep enteroscopy, we place metal stents in the luminal GI tract, we do ablation with various techniques. We drain pancreatic pseudocysts, we do necrosectomies, we do large area EMRs, lesions that were routinely going to surgery, and not to even mention third space endoscopy with POEM and ESD and full thickness resection. And all of those now are routine procedures that we do on a daily basis. This is not kind of out of the fringes. This is mainstream right now. How do we train for it? And currently, it's very difficult to lump all this into 1 year additional training. What we have done in our program, I hated to extend it to 2 years because it's a lot to ask from people. So we did this compromise of 18 months of training. But from day one, we start with the third space endoscopy. So it's not 1 year of ERCP and TUS and then tackling the third space at the end. But we start from day one, and then you have 18 months, and everything moves in parallel. Still suboptimal. In my mind, in ideal world, I have a list of things that I will do when I become a king. So one of the things on my list is to fix subspecialty training. I would say that ideal model, or good model at least, will be to do 2 years of general GI, and then your third year should be focused on your area of interest. Might that be IBD? Might that be hepatology? And then if you want to add a fourth year, which I believe in advanced endoscopy is needed, that will be great. But at least the third year leading into that pathway will be utilized for advanced endoscopy. So you don't graduate fellowship about the same time when you start getting your social security checks.
That's absolutely correct. Dennis, your thoughts on an ideal program? And I hear a lot about we talk a lot about what Peter just referred to is the probable emergence of a transformation, of how we're going to train and so forth. Your thoughts on that? You're training people now?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with everything Dr. Draganov mentioned, right? It's kind of a problem that we created. The subspecialization of advanced endoscopy now has provided so many specialty procedures that it's nearly impossible to try to learn them all during 1 year of advanced endoscopy fellowship. I try to tell fellows when they interview that, the goal is not to train somebody who's a jack of all trades, because then you're not going to be good at anything. I still think that currently, as it stands, the 1 year advanced endoscopy fellowship should focus on the course of ERCP and EUS. So somebody, an advanced fellow, their goal should still be to become a robust endoscopist, be able to treat basic pancreatical biliary diseases. And certainly most of our programs nowadays, we have subspecialties that we can expose advanced fellows to who may have further interest in that particular area, whether it may be endobariatrics, endohepatology, interventional EUS, or third space endoscopy. But I try to tell the applicants and the trainees that, it's not just the technical aspects of the procedure. You may start gaining competency in many of these, whether it's interventional EUS or bariatrics, but it comes more with the comprehensive cognitive understanding of how to incorporate these procedures into patient care. And this takes time. Same thing for third space endoscopy. You may be able to become relatively competent doing POEMs after 30, 40 cases, but we're not teaching POEM. We're teaching how to treat esophageal dysmotility, how to treat patients with these type of disorders. So it goes beyond the procedure itself. You need to understand the pathophysiology. You need to understand how to read manometry and how to incorporate this not only in how the procedure fits into that, but also on the post-procedural care aspect of patients. So trying to do all this within 1 year is just simply not feasible. The current model that stands, I think we can train great ERCP and EUA endoscopists and expose them to subspecialties. But like Dr. Draganov mentioned, the model needs to change in order for them to fully specialize.
Yes, I hear this a lot, and we talk about it, and you both may be aware the ASGE is of course looking at it, and there is a task force that's also looking at how the curriculum and everything will fit into this in the modern era. There was a time, as we all know, when our predecessors who started this space, so to speak, were the only game in town and had to perform all the procedures. But that was a relatively simpler time in terms of technology and all the different possibilities. But times have changed, and I think we need to evolve accordingly. Quick question here, Peter and Dennis. The research should be a big part of the advanced endoscopy training here?
The answer is yes. If nothing else, people will read research manuscripts for the rest of their career.
Right.
Even if you're not writing one, you have to be able to grasp details about methodology, and you can learn that in classes, but still the best way to learn it is by doing a project. Nothing gives you a better and deeper insight than actually being involved. And it was eye-opening for me. My first publication was a case report, which is something that people just shrug their shoulders. My gosh, it took a lot of time and effort to publish that case report at the time at the Red Journal, American Journal of Gastroenterology. It was a very positive experience and gave me a perspective of what does it take. And with Dr. Yang right now, we constantly interact. He will run an idea by me and I will run an idea by him. First of all, is this an important question that we need to answer? Secondly, it may be an important question, but is it feasible? So I think the fellows need to be involved in research. That doesn't mean that they have to spend majority of time of their research or take an extra year to do research, let's say like some surgical residencies do. But it is an essential part, and it will remain an essential part of their career.
Thank you. Yes, I agree fully. Dennis, any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I think going back to what you're mentioning, Vivek, is, most of the research we do as advanced endoscopists is clinical research, right? So it goes back towards how to improve patient care. And I think incorporating that into a fellowship is important because it stimulates our trainees to think of ways of how to move the field forward and how to provide better patient care. And I think it's very rewarding to meet trainees who share that same passion that you do in terms of thinking of ways of how to do this. And I think for me, that's what drives me to work every day, is to think of better ways of treating our patients, and then that tends to translate into potential ideas. But like Dr. Draganov mentioned, many of them who have not had a previous experience in research do not understand what or know how to go about it. And one of the most important things is to understand the process, the logistics of carrying out a project once you have a question in mind. And I think us doing that, educating trainees during the process, will serve them a long way during their career.
No, that's absolutely right. And, I think that, right now the focus is so much on procedures and technology and like you said, I want to learn how to do POEM, but I think the holistic aspect needs to be kept in mind as well. Dennis, describe for some of the younger people, and I think in the next section we'll want to do some quick, what I call rapid fire type of questions, right? So in the interest of time, describe quickly what was your time like, what your practice was as a trainee with Dr. Draganov in the time that you spent, clinic, endoscopy, what type of procedures, what was your 12 to 18 months of training were like for viewers who are watching this?
No, I truly enjoy working with Dr. Draganov for many aspects. I enjoy how he approached patient care, how his approach is pragmatic. Sometimes we can get bogged down by details, but looking at the whole picture and providing the best patient care was always his primary goal. I enjoyed working with Dr. Draganov mainly because I think we also share similar personalities. I abide strictly to deadlines, and I like to keep things moving on track. And I think we both work along the same wavelength. Importantly, I always felt that he always had my best interest in mind. He was genuinely invested in my career growth. And an important advice I have to mentees is you need to understand that mentors take time out of their busy schedule for you. And they're a lot of times doing this for no other reason but to help you in your career path. And you need to be grateful of this and certainly cherish that very unique opportunity and develop and basically take charge and be driven and do what you're supposed to do and use that opportunity to the best of your abilities.
Thanks, Dennis. Peter, any major do's and don'ts for mentors?
Oh boy.
Something they should never do, something they should always do.
Well, this was supposed to be a rapid fire and I'm stumbling.
Well, I have to stump you with something, right? You've been answering so flawlessly. Now I had to give you a question that will make you think.
Well, put a check mark in front of that. The main do is what Dennis mentioned. You have to be genuinely invested.
Right.
That person, not just to go through the motion because you have to. That to me is the biggest do. As far as don'ts, I would discourage not being straightforward and not be open about sharing your thoughts. Being honest, I think it's very important. Whether you like something or you don't like something, and
right.
Giving back. We live in an era where feedback is difficult to do. Our medical students are routinely encouraged to proactively seek feedback. When I was a medical student, no feedback was a great thing. That means the only feedback you got is when something was not right.
That is correct. Yeah.
That's changed. The thing is that they want feedback, but they don't want any feedback. They want a positive feedback.
Correct.
But I still give them an honest feedback.
No, yeah, I do. I totally understand what you're saying. I do feel that in the right setting, delivered the right way, I think most feedback is well received, especially if it's well founded in experience and in actual fact. But I do understand what you're saying. Dennis, any do's and don'ts for mentees? I think that's very pertinent. Folks who are entering the space.
Yeah,
pun
no,
intended,
I think
pun intended.
yeah, just basically going back to the same thing. I think for mentors, one of the having the opportunity to be a mentor myself nowadays, I think one of the things I keep telling myself is to understand the timeline that the mentee has with you, right? So I try not to get them involved in potential projects that they may not potentially see the end of it, and not be able to translate into something positive and productive for the mentee. So that always is in my mind. For the mentee, you'll hear this from all the people I work with. The very first time I meet up with them, I tell them, I'm going to be committed to you. That means I'm going to spend my time meeting with you on a regular basis, but I expect the same type of commitment from you. So when we talk about projects and we talk about doing things, you need to be driven and make sure it gets done. And I tell them, if you think this is not something you can commit to, I'd rather you tell me up front and say, I'm not ready for this. I think I'm going to be overwhelmed, and no hard feelings. But if you commit to a project, your mentor, then you have to see it through.
No, that's great. I think honesty and transparency are really key principles. Never cross that line where trust becomes a compromised value. I think now truly moving on to some real rapid fire areas. Peter, you've trained a lot of people. Many have stayed around, including Dennis is in the same state. A lot of mentors sometimes have some relative insecurity. I've known a few in my time when trainees set up shop around them. But you seem to be still pretty busy despite having trained so many people, some of whom may have stayed around. Any thoughts on how mentors should approach that delicate concept?
I personally have zero concerns about that. And that is because I believe all boats rise with the tide.
I absolutely agree with you. A great answer. I've never found that to be an issue. When I first came to the upstate New York region, it's a large region, right? So compared to Manhattan, it's like, 1,000 times bigger, there was basically, there was only maybe one or two, maybe one two EUS programs at the time. And in fact, we remember our mutual friend, Dr. Bora Gumustop, who actually had trained also at MUSC and had set up shop in Albany. So around that time. And since then, we probably now have, 25 EUS programs or more, and it really hasn't impacted us. So I think that's important for people to know that. Dennis, you set up shop in Florida, not too far away from Peter, and in the same space. You also have major competition in your region as well. Tell us what mentees should be thinking when they enter a competitive market, potentially.
Well, I mean, we're fortunate enough that Florida is a very big state with many people, and I think wherever you go, there's always going to be plenty of opportunities to take care of patients. In our area, there's plenty of opportunities for advanced endoscopy, in spite of the multiple large centers that they are there. But as you already heard from Dr. Draganov, I learned this thing from him, as well as other people who have influenced me throughout my career, and that is to focus on yourself. You try to be the best version of yourself. If you focus on treating care of patients, patients will come. Don't worry too much about what is going around you or what other people are doing per se.
That's sage advice. I think do the best job you can, and if you build it, they will come. I think that really is important. But these are important questions on both sides that have traditionally worried people, at all stages, when they enter busy markets. So I guess towards the final section of this conversation, how do you guys balance complex professional life with personal life, your travel? Peter, I know you've talked about this before, how our travels and our complex professional lives kind of intersect. What's your nirvana, so to speak? How do you keep it all together?
Right. So this is recently I ran into an article about that, and I had the concept in my head, but that article verbalized it best. They said it's not work-life balance. Mm-hmm. It's work-life integration.
Integration, right.
Yes, because if you're talking about work-life balance, if you're doing one thing, that means you're compromising the other thing. Mm-hmm. You're disturbing the balance. For example, right now I'm on vacation. Right now. Daytona Beach, right across from Daytona International Speedway, in a hotel room. But it is not disturbing my balance. You have to integrate them. I have tried everything. I go 1 week on vacation, I will not touch email. Oh my gosh, I come back, it's a disaster. I mean, affects patient care and so forth and so on. So you to try to integrate them and make them work the best you can both ways. So this concept of integration rather than balance is what has helped me.
I completely agree, and I think that if you're having fun doing it, it makes it a little bit easier. Dennis, what's your recipe for your peer group?
I like this new concept of integration. I think I'm gonna pitch it to my wife because I don't think she would agree and say that I have found any type of balance between work and family life. But I've definitely made strides over the years. I remember, and Dr. Draganov is witness to this. I used to spend most weekends in my office working on research before I had kids.
Right.
And once I had kids, when they were young, I would basically work and research on the weekends early in the morning and then spend time with them later on. Now that they're toddlers, I've just tried to become more and more efficient, and then I wake up a little bit earlier, do work when other people are still sleeping, and then that way when my family is awake, then I get to spend time with them and not disturb that balance. But now I like this new concept of integration better.
Well, we'll give you about 12 hours to try this new formula, and then Peter and I will expect a phone call from you later this evening. See how it went. With the new approach. So, all right. So let's see. We'll try yes or no answers. Dennis, academic platform, private practice. You're in a large, relatively non-traditional, non-academic center, but obviously a very high-profile center. Does it make a difference?
In some ways, yes. There's going to be differences between non-university health system and academic center. The pros is, there's probably from an efficiency standpoint, it tends to be higher revving. But being a hybrid practice, the institution still understands the importance of academia, so it still supports that aspect. On the downside, obviously navigating the private practice aspect of medicine for someone who's only been in academia before takes some time for adjusting.
Right. Peter, do you think it matters? You have a skill set. Does it matter whether you're in a university setting or not?
Well, the skill set is universally applicable. The navigation of the system obviously is quite different. In some cases, you need a different personality skill sets to navigate academics versus private practice. The key is that some of the problems that we face are universal, no matter where you are. Demand for higher production and so forth. But then some are specific to private practice versus academics, and some are specific to a given institution. Right. Have to be nimble. That's my main message, and adjust to whatever environment you need to be.
No, that's really important advice. I think to me, I've always advised mentees is that we'd rather go to a system, whatever academic or private, in a community that can use your skills more than necessarily being the 11th person in an academic program, right? So I think that's part of the advice we give. You guys, I heard that you still collaborate, at least talk to each other. Is that something that you still can do? Many years beyond your training time, Dennis, is that still possible? Do mentors still take your phone calls?
Yeah, people always ask me about this, and I say, I oftentimes, after I moved here to admin health, it just felt like an extension from where I was. So not much has changed in terms of what I do with Dr. Draganov, except that, I don't have him in the endoscopy unit on a daily basis. But apart from that, I think from a collaborative standpoint, from the involvement in terms of advice in work and research and collaboration, everything has been the same. And I would say in many ways even more productive, because now we have the benefit of having two institutions rather than one with farther reach.
No, absolutely. I think, Peter, any comments on that?
No. Actually, if anything, the things have continued to expand and to get better since we have moved. And we're still relatively close geographically, so we see each other with some frequency. And most importantly, I think Dennis mentioned that earlier, that we have similar values, which still stand there, but also we enjoy each other companies. For example, I'm going to Orlando in 1 week. Well, guess whom I called first? I called Dennis, let's have dinner together with the families. So it's a choice.
And especially in Orlando, you have many choices, many people you can call. No, I'm just kidding.
But my point is that when we were both in Gainesville, we were rarely doing that. Now, because of the geographic separation, in a way, I feel that we do it even more so getting together in a family style.
No, I think the reason I brought up this point is because I've experienced it, seen it happen many times, is that a certain kinship develops in many partnerships, which is lifelong, and certainly those that you developed at MUSC, Peter, and then that what you have here with Dennis. These are important things that people need to know coming into the field, as these are lifelong relationships, and the mentorship continues, whether it's passive or active or unseen by the rest of the world. So that's important. Well, so last question I always ask this is, Peter, what does the future hold for you?
I don't know. You can plan only that much. I'm certainly very much enjoying what I currently do. But to quote a friend of mine, if you're not going up, you're going down. So you have to constantly look for ways to do better. I think I'm doing a good job right now, but I also know I can do better. So that's my general modus operandi. I always try to do better in what I do, expand on technical side, cognitive side, or whatever that might be.
And that's not an easy task to accomplish. So I really commend you on that sentiment. Thanks for sharing that. And then Dennis, you have a little longer lease of life ahead of you. What's the plan?
So the immediate future is I'm on task of grilling today. So being July 4th, I'll be making burgers and steaks and so forth. That's part of my immediate future, and probably playing with the kids in the pool. But all joking aside, similar to Dr. Draganov, like I said, we share similar values, and I think that's part of why we have a strong bond, right? And like I mentioned previously, what drives me to work every day is to think of ways of making things better for our patients. And that's what keeps you on your toes, to never kind of just settle and go through the motions of everyday work, but think about every day as a challenge, as an opportunity to improve. Whether that's yourself or your practice or your trainees and so forth. So that's what's really rewarding about what we do.
Absolutely. And, I am very grateful and thankful for the time that both of you took, especially on a holiday, especially away from your families, to do this. I know the journal is grateful, the ASGE as well. And the insights that you shared are very deeply personal and quite provocative, and hopefully the folks who are listening and watching will take a leaf from this book and apply it to their own lives. Thanks again to both of you, and I hope to see you again on the road somewhere sometime soon, and have a good day. Thank you very much.